kids play or sit in the dugout. There is a segment of the homeless population that does not want housing and services. Putting aside each of your detailed plans for housing and services, how will you address this segment of the homeless population in a way that also improves the quality of life for residents like Brittany V in District 4? Katie?
That's a great question. I think what I would like to see is us answer that question once we actually ensure that we have all the options available to everybody, because right now there are simply a lot of reasons why somebody would refuse housing, and that's a complex thing. We need to make sure we have all those options available and then address the problem that remains. I do think most of the people that I've talked to on the streets desperately want a place to go. They desperately want a safe camping spot or a home or a unit that they can go into. If there is a remnant left, I want to work with the affordable homeless advocates to figure out what that solution looks like, what that intervention looks like. There are experts in this room, in this region, who know how to work with people who are in that type of extreme situation. And I think only working with those technical experts can we really figure out how to address that, cross that bridge when we get to it.
There is no greater institution that I am aware of in this neighborhood than the Lampard Pacific Little League, our 1984 World Champions. And I have to say that those kids don't deserve to have needles in their fields. We have done many things, but this is an area, honestly, where the city needs to do more. One of the things we did is we helped create a process for people who are experiencing homelessness through a program called the Downtown Streets Team, to come back and help clean up the neighborhood as well. But they get job training skills, they get services, and if you see them and go talk to them, they talk about the power of work that it's had on their lives to give them some dignity, something to do. I was with Jesse, the new team lead for the Broadway team recently, and they are picking up a lot of needles and trash in Broadway. That doesn't get to the root causes. We have to do more to get to the root causes. But Jesse talked about how much he loved being able to do something for other people because he felt so guilty other people were having to help him. And I thought that was really powerful. The other thing, though, is for places like the Lampard Pacific Little League, we are working conscientiously through a variety of means. Outreach Workers, our Navigator program, which goes out and works to try to navigate people in. The same services, though, that we're trying to do, rather than use law enforcement as a way to punish people experiencing homelessness, but sometimes we do need to do that because people do bad things sometimes. But we have a homeless impact team that is trained in implicit bias, mental health, and they're out there working to shift those impacts.
Satisfied with that? Okay. Moving on to you, Steve. We can all agree that we have a moral obligation to treat those experiencing homelessness with compassion and support. I think you guys both touched on that. What can city leaders do to provide accessible services for the homeless population while creating real incentives for those who wish to find housing and or rehabilitate themselves?
As a child, I experienced homelessness. My mother had abusive boyfriends. We lived in a domestic violence shelter for a while. We slept on other people's couches because we didn't have a place to be. We ate at a soup kitchen. I feel intense passion and compassion about this issue. And that's why when we talk about people experiencing homelessness, we have to bring all pieces of the equation together, coordinate the care, provide the intensive services, and we just, in the end, need to make sure that each of these folks has a different set of needs, that we're not stepping away from a part of the need that they have. And I don't remember the last part of the question.
Well, the idea, I think, is how do you create real incentives for people who may not want necessarily to seek it for themselves?
I think this is where the mayor's plan is really important, that if we build shelters, people have the obligation to take shelter. And ultimately, we can't do much enforcement under the Boise decision around camping or the camps until we have enough shelter beds to satisfy the population on the streets. We are the only city in this region that is doing this work. We need to see the rest of the 6-county region and its cities step up to join us. And that's where I think we need the legislature's help as well, to make sure that every city and every county provides the services for their people. More than 80% of the people experiencing homelessness on our streets, they come from this 6-county region. But they come to downtown Sacramento, District 4, and to Land Park in order to find the things that they need.
Katie?
And the reason I talk about there's a whole range of reasons why people will refuse shelter is I'm a single woman, and say I fell on hard times and ended up on the street. There's a lot of reasons why I might not want to go into a shelter. Maybe I found a safe place to go. Maybe I just don't feel comfortable in a big bug situation with a bunch of people that I don't know. And this is what I mean in terms of the compelling shelter idea is incredibly problematic because it assumes that one size is going to fit all of these large shelter situations, and that's simply not the case. And we need to address the myriad of issues in a holistic way before we start trying to work to compel people and spend valuable police resources that honestly should be going elsewhere to enforce something that is simply the need to sit or sleep when you're done tired at the end of the day. That's what I miss talking about when I think what we're missing with our current plan. The city spent a lot of resources joining the Boise lawsuit appeal that happened. I think that's time and energy that we should have been spending trying to actually solve the problem here. And so that's the part of the reason why the shelter approach is so problematic, because it is a one-size-fits-all. And yes, that was your stuff.
You want to respond?
So we heard that there's an idea for a massive homeless shelter at Arco Arena, and then we just heard that it's the opposite, that massive shelters are not the answer. I don't really know what your plan is, but my plan is to open shelters. My plan is to help people get housed. My plan is to help people get off the streets, but if they need encouragement, if they need help, I'm all for that. But we have to try everything possible, and you can't have it both ways. You can't say Arco Arena and the Kings own that and set that up as a thing. The city doesn't own that. There's no debt owed on it. We have no recourse there. We need practical things that we can do, and we have spent more money in the last 4 years on this crisis than we've ever spent before, and we're only beginning to see the fruits of that. We've tried new shelters as pilots. The railroad shelter we learned a lot from, and Capitol Park is working very well. Would you rather have 116 people outside on the streets or inside shelter with their own toilet, their own shower, and getting the services they need?
It's easy to twist words when we're in a situation like that, and I can talk in great detail about what my thinking is around Arco Arena, but I want to focus more on Capitol Park Hotel. Because I've actually talked to folks who are living there right now. I've heard stories about the locked bathrooms. I've heard stories about no heat and no warm water. I've heard stories about elevators going out. I work at the building right next door to Capitol Park Hotel in the Forum building. I've seen people in the process of getting kicked out of that building. And not to say that I think that people are better off on the street. I'm just saying we should lift that up as a model of best practice of what this could look like in this region.
Another subject here, and I think it's a question and a subject that maybe is at the center of this campaign here. Job preparedness. One question posed in two different ways to the two of you. Many people voting in this election see this as a clear choice between the establishment and the anti-establishment. Steve Hansen has been in office 8 years and has an impressive list of supporters and relationships built during that time, while Katie Valenzuela has never held elected office. I'm going to ask this question to you in two different ways. First, Katie, how do you answer questions that residents could be at a disadvantage if you're elected because you don't have the connections to the power centers in Sacramento?
I love that question. So I'm a community organizer. I've been making change at the local and state level without sitting in a position of power for years. The Urban Agriculture Coalition existed because I was a part of that formation. Legalized homemade food at the state level exists because I joined an office to push for that bill to happen at the state level. I have sat on state environmental justice committees. We pushed back on the state climate plan and got 19 workshops around the state of California in the most impacted communities so that their voice could be heard in that strategy. I could go on and on about all of the different things that I've been able to get done in this community and across the state. I have ample experience doing that, and I haven't had the privilege of being a city council member. Imagine what I could do if I actually held some authority in the decisions. Imagine what I could do with a staff right here. I was just going to finish real quick. And right now, even if you're impressed by what you're seeing on our campaign, you need to know that I am managing everything on this campaign. We are working entirely volunteered, except for one field consultant who is getting a stipend to run back in PDI. So what you're seeing today is just a small sample of what you will see when I'm elected and able to actually move things at the scale that we need in this district.
But how do you answer questions that you're too close to Sacramento leaders to advocate for reforms?
When I first ran, I was an outsider. As the first openly LGBT member of the city council, I still speak my mind when I disagree. And look, it wasn't popular when I took on strong mayor and opposed Kevin Johnson. It wasn't popular when I've done a lot of things because I try to do what is right. And in the end, too, well, Ms. Valenzuela says she's doing this all by herself. Her reports show that she's paying political consultants tens of thousands of dollars to help run this campaign. So I don't know which is true, but I will tell you, every time you show up at that council meeting, you got to figure out how you're going to get 5 votes. You're going to have to figure out how you build a coalition. It was me on the council working with the Urban Ag Coalition that passed that ordinance. I was the lead person on that. And she has a supporter in Larry Clark who opposed that, who opposed homeless shelter. So I don't know how that adds up. But when we came to pass the flavor ban last year to help protect our kids at McClatchy, who I was hearing were getting Juul devices and all these other things, I led that coalition. It was a very difficult vote, but we got it done. When it came to passing the Tenant Protection Relief Act, 7-2, I got it done. Because when hard things happen, I work with the community, I work with stakeholders, and we forge progress. It's not always easy, it's not always quick, but guess what? We do it because that's what the community demands. And every time I've been asked to step up, I have stepped up. And that's why my colleagues, that's why the people who support me, whether you're business or labor, law enforcement, or activists, we work together. And that's how you win in this community.